Welcome back to 3 Inquisitive Kids. In this video, we will be learning about multiplication of rational numbers. Today, we're going to be learning about multiplication with rational numbers, and in our previous lessons, we learned about adding and subtracting with rational numbers. So now, we're going to start going into multiplication, division, and exponents. Our learning goals for today is to be able to proficiently multiply rational numbers together and determine if the final product should be positive or negative. Uncle Todd owns and runs a restaurant, but he loses $100 a day due to using waste oil. The picture below shows his restaurant's bill of the month for the month of September. Can you figure out how much money he lost in total? For those of you who don't know, waste oil is the type of oil that can be bad for you. And I remember that my grandparents would used to tell me to not go to one of those fast food restaurants because they use waste oil. And my grandparents did not want me to go eating fast food. So how much money did he lose in total? Well, he loses $100 a day, which is negative 100. You can see that there are 30 days in this calendar. So it would be negative 100 times 30, which equals negative $3,000. So in total, Uncle Todd lost $3,000. That's a lot of money. As shown in the figure, a snail crawls along straight line L, and its current position is at point O on line L. If the snail crawls 2 centimeters to the right, it is recorded as positive 2. If the snail crawls 2 centimeters to the left, it would be recorded as blank. So it says that if it crawls to the right, it is plus 2, and the left is the opposite of right. So what is the opposite of plus 2? That would be negative 2. If 3 minutes later is recorded as plus 3 minutes, then 3 minutes ago should be recorded as negative 3 minutes, because later is the opposite than ago, and so positive 3 is the opposite of negative 3. If the snail has been crawling towards the right at a speed of 2 centimeters per minute, where will it be in 3 minutes? Here's a little animation. There is a specific formula we can use for this. It's very basic. It is the formula we use for distance. Distance equals the speed of something times the time. So the speed of the snail is 2 centimeters per minute, and the time is 3 minutes. So 2 times 3 would equal 6. And we know that it crawls to the right at a speed of 2 centimeters per minute. So it would be a positive 6. The equation would be positive 2 times positive 3 equals 6. If the snail has been crawling to the left at a speed of 2 centimeters per minute, where will it be in 3 minutes? So this is the same problem as last time, except that now it's crawling to the left. After 3 minutes, the snail will be 6 units to the left from O. And our equation for this would be negative 2, because it's crawling to the left instead of the right this time, and it's crawling for 3 minutes. And here we should actually have a negative 6 instead of positive 6. Here we have 2 times 3, which gives us 6. One factor changes its signs from positive to negative, and we're left with negative 6 as a product. So the product becomes the additive inverse of the original product. If you replace a factor with its additive inverse in the multiplication sentence, the second product will be the opposite of the original product. Now again, you have 2 times 3 equals 6. Its additive inverse is negative 3, so we get 2 times negative 3, which gives us negative 6. The 6 becomes its additive inverse, which is negative 6. The additive inverse of 2 is negative 2. So now we're going to turn this into negative 2 as well. Negative 2 times negative 3 equals, what do you think? It becomes the additive inverse of this product again, which gives us 6. So every time you change a factor's sign, the product becomes its additive inverse. First, you change the positive 3 into negative 3, which gives it negative 6. Then you changed another factor into its additive inverse, which gave us 6 again. If the snail has been crawling to the right at a speed of 2 centimeters per minute, where was it 3 minutes ago? Three minutes ago, the snail was blank centimeters to the blank of O. So we know that it's going to be 6 centimeters to the left of O, because our equation tells us that it's been crawling to the right at a speed of 2 centimeters per minute. So that's positive 2 times negative 3, because now we're talking about where it was 3 minutes ago. And that would be represented as negative 3. So 2 times negative 3 equals negative 6. If the snail has been crawling to the left at a speed of 2 centimeters per minute, where was it 3 minutes ago? 3 minutes ago, the snail was 6 centimeters in the right direction of O. So this time it's crawling to the left at a speed of 2 centimeters per minute, which is negative 2. And we have 3 minutes ago, which is negative 3. And this multiplied together gives us 6. Here we have 4 expressions. For the first one, we have 2 times 3, which is 6. You can see that both factors are positive, so we have a positive number. For the second problem, we have negative 2 times negative 3, which also gives us positive 6. This time, it's a negative times a negative, which gives us a positive. For the third problem, we have a negative times a positive, which gives us a negative product. And for the fourth one, we have positive times negative, which also gives us a negative product. Two factors with the same sign result in a positive product. Two factors with different signs will result in a negative product. If the snail stays in the same place, where will it be in 3 minutes? The snail will just remain at point O, because it's moving 0 centimeters per minute. It moves for 3 minutes, so 0 times 3, which just gives us 0. Here for the first and second problems, you can see that the product is positive because both signs are the same. For the third product, if the symbols of both factors are not the same, the product is negative. We have a negative 2 and a negative 3. If any factor is multiplied by 0, the product will always be 0. So here we have a neat table for us to conclude what we just learned. If the signs of the factors have the same signs, the sign of the product will be positive. If both factors have different signs, the sign of the product will be negative. And the absolute value of the product would be determined by the product of the absolute value of factors. And if 0 is a factor, then the product is just 0. First determine if it's going to be positive or negative, then set the absolute value. Now I want you to answer these 4 questions. Also, I want to tell you that this b is actually supposed to be a 0 over here. So for the first one, we have a is less than 0, which means that it's going to be negative. And b is a positive number, so a negative times a positive is a negative, which means that ab is a negative number. So it's less than 0. If a is less than 0 and b is also less than 0, it means that they're both negative, which means that they have the same signs, which means that AB is greater than 0. And if AB is greater than 0, what conditions should A and B meet? A and B should have the same symbols if the product is going to be positive. And if AB is less than 0, A and B have different symbols. First determine the symbol of the product, the sign of the product, then calculate the absolute value to get the product. For the first one, we have negative 15, second one is negative 24, third one is positive 63, and the fourth one is 0.35. The product is negative for the first two, and the product is positive for the last two. Determine whether x is positive, negative, or 0 in the following equations. Without even calculating, I want you to be able to figure out what sign x has. X is negative for the first one because 4 is a positive number and it needs to be multiplied to a negative number in order to get a negative product. For the second one, x is also negative. The third one, x is positive because Negative 9 is already the negative factor we're going to need for getting a negative product, so x has to be positive, and x is 0 for the last one. Now I want you to simplify these four expressions. For the first one, you have 54, the second one is negative 54, third one is negative 12, and the fourth one is positive 12. Determine whether the product of the following expressions is positive or negative. Now we're going to calculate with four factors. The first one is negative, because the product of these three factors would be positive, and a positive times negative is negative. The second one is positive, because negative 4 times negative 5 must be positive, and the product of 2 and 3 is also positive. So positive times positive equals a positive product. For the third one, we have negative. You can simplify this down into two factors. The fourth one is positive, and the last one is just 0. As soon as you see a 0 as one of the factors, you can just write 0 on the answer sheet because you don't have to do all that extra calculating. So if you multiply numbers that are not 0 together, the symbol of the product is determined by the number of negative factors. When there is an odd number of negative factors, the product is negative. When there is an even number of negative factors, the product is positive. If there is a 0 in a multiplication equation, the product is 0. After knowing this, you can go back to the previous slide and check for yourself if these points are true. Now I want you to simplify these two expressions. For the first problem, we know that this is going to be negative because we see that there are 3 negative factors. So before we even start calculating, we're going to write a negative sign. Then we can start calculating the absolute value. You can see that this 5 and this 5 cancels each other out. This cancels this out. So we actually have negative 9 over 4 as our answer. So we actually have negative 9 over 8 as our answer. I don't know why it says negative 27 over 8. First, determine if the product is going to be positive, negative, or 0. For the second problem, 5 times 6 times 4/5 times 1/4. No matter what, we already know that the product is going to be positive, so we didn't even bother writing down the negative signs. We start our calculating. This 5 and this 5 cancel each other out, and this 4 and this 4 cancel each other out to leave us with 6. Then multiply to find the absolute value. So what are reciprocals? I want you to simplify these two expressions. 1/2 times 2 equals 1. And negative 1/2 times negative 2 equals 1 as well. Multiplying a number by its reciprocal equals 1. So maybe now you're starting to get an idea of what reciprocals are. Two rational numbers with a product of 1 are considered reciprocals of each other. So the reciprocal of n would be written as 1 over n. The reciprocal of a positive number is positive, and the reciprocal of a negative number is negative. Fractions with reversed numerators and denominators are reciprocals of each other. So basically what this is saying is that 4/5 is the reciprocal of 5/4. You can see how the numerator and the denominator are being flip-flopped around. And I'm pretty sure that this is not how you spell denominator. In order to find the reciprocal of a decimal, first convert it into a fraction and then find its absolute value. So let's say that over here you have 0.8. And you know that that is 4/5 in decimal, in fraction form. And so it's much easier to find the reciprocal of a fraction than it is to find the reciprocal of a decimal. Because in fraction form, all you have to do is flip it upside down. And 0 doesn't have a reciprocal, because any number times 0 would equal 0. It wouldn't equal 1 at all. Now here's some practice. The reciprocal of 1 is 1. The reciprocal of negative 1 is negative 1. The reciprocal of 1/3 is 3. The reciprocal of negative 1/3 is negative 3. The reciprocal of 2/3 is 3/2. The reciprocal of negative 2/3 is negative 3/2. And the reciprocal of 0 is none, because 0 does not have a reciprocal. And the reciprocal of a would be 1 over a. That's how you would express it. When a does not equal 0, the reciprocal of a is 1 over a. So now I want you to pause the video for a moment and fill in this table. For the first row, we have our number, which is negative 2.5. Its additive inverse would be 2.5. Its reciprocal would be negative 2/5, and its absolute value would be 2.5. For the third row, we know that the additive inverse of a number is 3, which means that this original number is negative 3, and its reciprocal is negative 1/3, and its absolute value is 3. For the third row, we know that the reciprocal of a number is negative 1/5. This must mean that this number is negative 5, its additive inverse is 5, and its absolute value is 5. Here we have 1/2 as our number. Its additive inverse is negative 1/2, and its reciprocal is 2, and its absolute value is just 1/2. Our fourth number is 1 3/4. Its additive inverse is negative 7/4. Its reciprocal is 4/7. Its absolute value is 7/4. For the last one, we know that the additive inverse of a number is negative 7, so this number must be 7. Its reciprocal is 1/7, and its absolute value is 7. So now we know what an additive inverse is, what a reciprocal is, and what an absolute value is. Given that a and b are the additive inverses of each other, c and d are reciprocals, and the absolute values of m is 6, find the value of a plus b over m minus cd plus the absolute value of m. This solution is a little messed up here, so please bear with me. If a and b are the additive inverse, I'll write AI for short, additive inverses of each other, then a plus b must equal 0. And since c and d are reciprocals, I'll write an R for short, are reciprocals of each other, then CD equals 1. And it is given that the absolute value of m is 6. Therefore, this is the mathematical sign for therefore. The sum of a plus b over m minus cd plus the absolute value of m, when replaced with its values, is 0, because we know that a plus b equals 0, and if the numerator of a fraction is 0, then it just equals 0, minus 1, because cd equals 1, plus 6, because that's the absolute value of m, and that gives us 5. So the value of this expression would be 5, and that is our answer. We used what we learned about additive inverses and reciprocals in this problem. It was very helpful to know that a plus b equals 0, cd equals 1, and the absolute value of m equals 6. So knowing these basic definitions like additive inverses and absolute values and reciprocals will really help you in more complicated problems later on. So here are some word problems. We can use rational numbers to represent temperature change. A rise in temperature is positive and a drop in temperature is negative. The 3 Inquisitive Kids team is climbing a mountain and the temperature changes by negative 6 degrees Celsius every 1 kilometer is climbed. After climbing 3 kilometers, how will the temperature change? Our solution would be to write down negative 6 times 3, which gives us negative 18. So our answer would be the temperature drops by 18 degrees Celsius. Here's another table for you to fill out. We have 2 factors here. One is negative 5 and the other is 7. The sign of the product would be negative because we have one negative factor. And the absolute value of the product would be 35. And the product would be negative 35. For the second row, we have a positive sign. And the absolute value is going to be 90. And the product is positive 90. For the third row, we have a positive product again. The absolute value is 180 and the product is positive 80. For the fourth row, we have a negative product. The absolute value is going to be 100 and the product is negative 100. Now I want you to simplify these 3 expressions. For the first expression, we know that it's going to be positive anyway, and 125 times 8 is 1,000. 1,000 times 2 equals 2,000. For the second problem, we have negative 3/5. We know that this is going to be a negative product because there is an odd number of negative factors. and the third one is just 0. Fill in the blanks with the greater sign and the less sign. If a is less than 0 and b is less than 0, then ab is greater than 0, because both factors are negative. If a is less than 0 and b is greater than 0, then ab is less than 0, because the signs are different. If ab is greater than 0, which of the following choices are true? The answer is D. A can be greater than 0, and b can also be greater than 0, or both a and b are less than 0. The answer to the fifth problem is B. At least one factor, a or b, is 0. The product of a number and its additive inverse is C. It must not be greater than 0. The reason we wrote that instead of saying B is because if we say it must be negative, then it's just talking about negative numbers. But if we say that it must not be greater than 0, we're including negative numbers and 0 itself. 7. Given that AB equals the absolute value of AB, which of the statements is true? The answer is D. We know that absolute values are positive, which means that AB is a positive product. And we know that both factors will have to have the same signs if the product is positive. And you can see that none of the choices here said that, which means that none of the previous statements are true. Here's your class summary. Today we learned that if two factors have the same sign, the product is positive. If two factors have different signs, the product is negative. And any number multiplied by 0 is 0. Two numbers whose product is 1 are reciprocals of each other.